you can analyze not only your portfolio, but you can analyze both emotional and rational domains of your investing. I'll give you an example, and it's a silly one, but it's a true example. I had a client come to me and say, can you find me which suburb will grow the most in Central Coast? But also make sure that in your analysis, you consider pole dance studios, because I'm a pole dancer and I want to be close to pole dance studios. See, this is when large language models do its magic.
Right.
It's essentially a question and an output takes seconds, and it's accurate.
Today's guest is someone who's been on a mission to change the way Australians invest in property. In 2018, alongside with his co-founder Alex, Matt set out to help investors cut through the hype, avoid costly mistakes, and make smarter property decisions based on facts, not fads. Today, they founded HTag Analytics, a platform that's like having a data analyst in your pocket, giving everyday investors and property professionals the tools they need to find locations with higher than average growth potential. By 2020, the HTag team had spent 2 years building a treasure trove of reliable property data from historical prices and market trends to economic indicators and demographic shifts, all with commitment to data integrity. Their work led to the creation of RCS, a predictive model that analyzes over 80 metrics and nearly 2 billion data points using advanced machine learning. This was a game changer for identifying profitable suburbs before the market caught on. Fast forward to today, HTag is more than just a platform. It's a thriving community of investors and professionals who share knowledge, collaborate on strategies, and stay ahead of the market together. Matt's mission remains crystal clear: to democratize property research, empower investors and trustworthy insights, and help them invest with confidence. Matt, welcome to the Invest Smarter, Grow Faster podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, man. It's been a long overdue. Like, we've known each other for a while now, but finally we're sitting down.
I know I was saying when I just like, I feel like I've known an old friend, but
yeah, exactly. Well,
you know,
we've been chatting for what now? Over 2 years, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed we started our companies around the same time. Obviously, in the early days, not much interaction, but you're building right. And we were building as well. But yeah, certainly a big fan and user of HTag, which we'll talk more about.
Thank you for your support, honestly.
Pleasure, mate. Love to start when tradition is to just get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, sure,
and tell me a little bit about the background, family, education, growing up.
Yeah, that's actually, I think you're the first person that asked me in that way. Like,
I'm a bit nosy, mate. I like to know.
No. I actually prefer that because there's more behind. You know, every time somebody wants to speak to me, they want to speak to me about data. You know, and I get into this autopilot mode where everything I talk about is statistics. Like, even how many long blacks do we order a week or whatever. But so I migrated to Australia in 2000s. I came from Serbia, was born and raised there. It was November 2000. It was a bit of a rough road. I remember I couldn't speak English, but you know what? I picked it up fairly quickly.
You couldn't speak English?
No.
Wow.
No, I think, when
you say raised, your education was in...
Yeah. So I finished, I started high school over there. I nearly finished high school. So I came when I was 17.
Yeah.
Nearly finished high school over there. Then I came here and I had to go to that, Centre for Learning. I think it's called ICE or ICL. I'm not sure. Because of my English, they put me back, I think 2 years now, because I went, when I say the education system essentially, like I went with people who are 1986 and I'm 1984.
Yeah.
Finished year 11 and year 12. And I think because of, my parents, they're not academics, but they're intellectuals in a sense that, they were always pushing me towards reading, philosophy, all of this other stuff, and my dad especially. And they were very big on school. Like, my dad was, you can do whatever you want as long as you got good marks kind of thing, And I was a good student, but because of the English thing, I couldn't actually enroll at uni after finishing high school. I think my HSC was back then. I think it was like 70.
And you went to a normal high school, public high school? Or you had to go through college?
Yeah. I went to public high school.
Okay.
I went to public high school, finished year 11 and 12, then did TAFE. And at that time, I remember I started working on construction site as a petitioner because I just needed to. By the way, the whole Yugoslav or Serbian communities into petitioning. You know,
Correct.
they all do that. Yeah.
Yes.
So okay, well, how am I going to earn a living? You know, how am I going to earn a buck? I need to go out and mingle. You know, so started working on site. But I'm the type of guy that I'm so clumsy. I can't even hold the hammer properly. You know. But I was doing it for a while. I would say 10 years, probably less. But I was like going to school and doing that. But
so when you say school, you're doing an apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I was doing TAFE. I did a business diploma at TAFE. Again, one of these things, and I always say, I don't even know how kids, when they finish high school, like, I don't know what I want to do when I'm 18 or 17. You realize that at 30, essentially, you know. So I just enrolled in anything that I could, you know, to get a diploma. And then with that diploma, so I can do university because I had to do, like I had to. I wanted to, and my parents were, you know, pushing towards, you know, that direction, I would say. But I was working on site at the same time, and I realized, you know, construction is not for me. Not that it's, you know, not good in, what's the word? Not employment, but industry, I would say. But I just wasn't suited for it, you know. I just wasn't suited.
Were you learning English, or were they all speaking? Because if you're working with other Serbians?
So at that time I was speaking already because it took me about, I would say, 6 months to pick it up.
Wow.
Because I was younger and I'm good with languages. You know, I'm good with languages. I was younger. I mean, you can still see that I got an accent. You know, I'm never going to eliminate that, but it's still, you know, so I've picked it up fairly quickly. Although within that 6 months, you know, there's a bit of trauma there, you know.
I can imagine, yeah.
Going to school, I remember on the first day, I'm trying to get there and I'm like, shit, I didn't know how to say a complex sentence. But anyway, went to uni after that. I went through a bit of a bad phase. I was a bit of a rebel, if you will, going out, partying kind of thing, you know. My marks sort of reflected it. I was nearly actually thrown out of the university because I think I failed one subject 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it just wasn't going, you know, it wasn't going to uni.
You enjoy this new freedom and new country.
And then it hit me. You know, if I continue doing this, it's not, you know, it's not the way to go. And then I sort of pressed the gas pedal and finished another degree, then did a PhD, finished that. And essentially throughout that time, like I realized that I wasn't suited for site. So I wanted to get a job in an office, you know, but I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I haven't got any experience.
So you're doing these degrees, including the PhD, and you were still working on site?
So I was sort of jumping. So I would say when I finished my first degree, I was still on site.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I need to do something with it. But I didn't want to work for a bank or like I just didn't
want to put on a suit and
like I wanted to put on a suit. I wanted to work in an office, but I wanted to see, okay, how do I leverage whatever I know up to this date, like for example, construction, and so I wanted to work for a construction company, but in the office, you know? Anyway, I did some creative writing on my CV, if you want to call it that.
Pre-ChatGPT, yeah.
Pre-ChatGPT, I did some creative writing. And I got a job as an estimator. And I remember like on my CV used to say like that I was an estimator for a petitioning business.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I did not, honestly, I was, and this is ironic because at that time, like computers, Excel, I didn't know how to use Excel. I didn't know how to use anything. I didn't even know how to. I remember I was married at that time. I used to call my ex-wife now and say, how do you send a PDF file to a printer so I can print it out? So essentially it was the deep end, you know, it was extremely deep end. Obviously my employer realized because when you're an estimator, you get a set of plans, you measure everything, you calculate, and then you present that, and that's submitted as a tender, you know. My employer realized right away that I have no clue what I'm doing, you know. I remember his name is Rob. Shout out to Rob. We're very good friends now. But he embarrassed me in front of the whole office. He was yelling at me that I'm useless, that I'm this. And I'm the type of guy that if you tell me I can't do something, I'll not sleep for like 6 months to prove you wrong, you know? 6 months later, I became an estimating director of the company which shares in the business.
In 6 months?
In 6 months. In 6 months, I became an estimating director. I had 15% shares and was a very high salary back then as well. Within that 6 months, and then after a year, it was about 6 months. It was 6 months because actually I tell a lie. I left that business after 3 months, went to work for another company, was there for 6 months, and then he poached me back. So
that's when he offered you the big.
That's when he offered me the, you know. anything. It didn't work out, but I was doing estimating and ended up, being an estimating manager, managing a team of estimators before I sort of stopped doing that and started HTag. Well, we started HTag before I quit. Alex was full-time right away. We started HTag before I quit, but I was working towards, but it's interesting, like construction, then, went into construction, did a PhD, or my educational background has nothing to do with construction. Well, one of the degrees I have is project management, which sort of does, and then go into tech. And as I said before, I didn't know how to send a PDF file to a printer when I started. So it's an interesting journey. Like everything is fragmented. There's no purpose to it, but it seems like there is an underlying purpose, No. And here we are, HTag now.
I know. It was it's a beautiful migrant story, right? It's what built this country, and you've come from a country where your probably opportunities would have, I'm assuming your parents migrated here, probably same as mine, for opportunities for the kids, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was
themselves.
actually the main pitch, if you will. I remember we went to the Australian Embassy for an interview. They used to do interviews. And my dad said exactly that, it is for the opportunity. And I still live here. I don't think I will ever go back. My brother moved back, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my brother moved back a couple of years ago because his wife is from Serbia. He met her there and all of that, so it's like easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is home now, essentially.
Lovely. So let's. Thanks for the background. It
sorry, as I said, I'm a talker. I go into
where your brain and how it works, but it's kind of relevant to what we're going to talk about now, which is interesting. But obviously, in all seriousness, the discipline for you to do all that education without the silver spoon that a lot of us get, growing up in Australia potentially, and then the language barriers, and then still able to finish off into a PhD, which is very rare. So, well done.
Yeah. It's my parents. My parents are, my dad was always, I had very good upbringing, and my parents are good parents, Even if I'm a parent now and I have 2 kids, but I think I would never reach that because you have to think about it. By the age of 18, or 17, I went through 2 wars,
Correct.
And all of that without attaining any scars, if you will, you know what I mean, is, great work, of my parents. But yeah, I was always interested in education. I was always interested in writing, philosophy, learning, studying, you know what I mean? It's like a natural progression for me. But yeah, when I don't reflect over things, I try to, Carl Jung said, up until you're 30, you build an ego to defend yourself from the world. And then after 30, you have to, work on disposing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that's pretty very true.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because it becomes a burden. It becomes a weighing on your shoulders. So, when you reflect over it, it's an interesting story, but, you just, put your head down and do what you need to do, and that's it.
But I can see you're very grateful for the opportunity that your parents have definitely
absolutely.
to bring you to this great country.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now, taking advantage of all that, the lottery, but your parents and great parents who brought you here, and then you've done all that hard work education. Now let's talk about HTag. So 2018, you and Alex were mates, or how did you guys connect?
Yeah, interesting. So I because Serbian is a very close language to Russian, very similar. We even have same writing, Cyrillic writing and stuff like that. Yep. And the two countries are very similar in respect to culture, religion, and stuff like that, And I always wanted to learn more languages because I had this vision in my mind. I have to play a piano. I have to learn how to play a piano. I have to speak 3 languages, and I have to have a PhD. I was crossing them off. I don't know. Right. I don't know for what reason, but anyway, that was like an image of what I wanted to be. And I said, okay, I might as well start with the low-hanging fruit. I start with the languages that are close.
Yeah.
And I enrolled at Sydney Uni. That was a course that was doing a Russian course to learn Russian. And the teacher is Alex's mum.
Wow, right.
Alex's mum. And I was, going to the classes and all of that. And she's like, I would love you to meet my son. And I'm thinking, come on, a mandate? I don't think I'm suited for that, It's not something. And I'm the type of guy, like I have a very close group of friends. And all of the friends that I do have, I've known for 30 years, minimum.
Wow.
Minimum 30 years. And I don't know if you watch Seinfeld, there's like, we're not interviewing for friends anymore. I was at that stage, But anyway, somehow she talked me into it, and I went out with him, and he's the same type of guy. He's interested in philosophy, he's interested in thinking, but he's got more of a tech mindset, data mindset, And I remember we went out on our mandate, if you want to call it, had a couple of glasses of scotch, and we were just chatting for hours about things, and that's how we met. And HTag wasn't being discussed or anything like that. We met, I'm interested in investing. I was an investor. He was an investor as well.
Right.
I think he had, even 3 houses by then, 3 investment properties. I had one. And I wanted to, build my portfolio to sort of have a plan B because I don't want to work in construction my whole life. That's what I said to myself, And that's how we essentially started. That's how we met and we started thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So pre-Tinder, you get set up on a date. And
exactly.
Here we are. The company is born.
Yeah. And I remember we're intense in a sense that we were communicating a lot about different things. And I remember I used to collect information. At that time, I don't know if you can remember, obviously, buyer's agents used to hold seminars.
Yep.
That's how they used to acquire clients,
Correct.
Silly me, I didn't know that was like a whole marketing campaign thing,
I don't even know those are buyer's agents. I think they're more spruikers, and we call them these days.
Well, yeah.
But that's what we all attended, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was, I wanted to, I took it as a learning experience. I wanted to go out to every seminar possible, read every book possible to actually learn about things.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a seminar and this buyer's agent was also holding some of the meetings where he lived at, the residence building next to Hyde Park.
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah. So he had meetings up there. It was a nice building, and I remember I went with my ex-wife and we wanted to engage him. And as he's talking, I go, yeah. So you want to teach us? I sort of cut him off because, I'm on the spectrum, by the way. So I can sometimes see where he's heading. So I don't have the patience to stop. I just
bang.
Yeah. And I say, so you want to teach us how we can do it ourselves? Oblivious. He looks at me like, not really. I want you as a client. But anyway, I remember I was collecting data from your investment property magazine that had monthly statistics about vacancy rates, days on market.
On the back pages.
Yeah, that's right, on the back pages. And I said to myself, okay, if the days on market for this month is this, what was it before? I need to know what was it before so I can learn what's going to be in the future. And then I call Alex and we start working on something for ourselves, essentially, building something for ourselves so we can use it to better interpret market,
I'm assuming that guy's selling off the plan and house and land. I'm assuming he's not selling.
And the reason why, great question. So at that time I think it's a harsh term to say flogging, but I'll use that term anyway. I think they were off the plan houses. When you say off the plan, essentially house and land packages, sorry.
Yeah, or it could be apartments or generally.
Yeah. So no, it was house and land packages,
yeah.
But it was in Gladstone, it was in Gladstone in those areas.
Back then?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I approached one of them and I said, because he had a team around, and I said, what are your thoughts on Southwest Sydney? And I know because I was going to council websites and Southwest Sydney, where I live, was branded as the South West Growth Corridor. And then you had the Northwest Growth Corridor. We have Kelly Wheels and all of that.
Correct.
And by the way, Southwest Sydney back then, you didn't have these suburbs. It was pastures. Yeah, green. Yep. Yeah. So it was, and I go,
well, the migrants had farms on them.
Exactly. And no, we're not, it's not on our radar. And I'm like, hold on, how come? And I'm reading all these things about how much money government is pumping. The airport, Western Sydney Airport wasn't even on the cards back then. It was discussed, but nothing was signed, No. And I go, okay, so obviously there's information that's missing, or information is sparse and you can't organize it into a single domain, which will be necessary to make the best choice. So that's how, I started.
How do we bring all this together?
Yeah, how do we bring all this together into a single thing for us?
Yeah.
That's how we started for us. I made so many mistakes building a business, and we can talk about that as well. But how do we do it for us to actually make better decisions,
That's 2018 when you first started, like you said, a little bit of bar time kicking around. But you registered the name. And
exactly. It was 2018. I'm very bad. I have my memory is very good and detailed for things that I care about.
Yeah.
For example, birthdays and all of these other things. It takes me a while to remember my kid's birthday.
Don't worry.
I had to write it down. I got only 2, by the way,
I had to put my wedding date on the back of the ring so I don't forget my...
Exactly. So these dates, I know we started in 2018, but when exactly this happened and how it happened, I don't recall exactly the dates and years,
So the platform's grown dramatically. You're huge following through particularly the buyer's agent space, and now a lot of the B2C clients and business consumers are coming in and subscribing. Let's talk about the rationale. So, talk about the trends. So we talk about the hype markets or a brand, a word that you trademark, warm spots.
Yeah.
So we always talk about hotspots. What's hotspot? But by then, it's already hot. Everyone's
hotspot,
there.
It's already too late.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so how did you get around to defining the difference between the hype, the hotspots, to now, actually fundamentally using the data? Yeah.
I'm very good with patterns. Like it's my superpower. I can see patterns very clearly. Now, the beautiful thing about patterns when it comes to data is you can do a correlation analysis. Yep. You can put information into an algorithm. The algorithm comes out with a correlation coefficient, and you sort of use that to determine what is more linked to an outcome than another thing, So Alex first developed, as you know, the RCS score, the predictive algorithm. Yep. Now, RCS score was a relative composite score. The fact that it's relative means that it compares the suburb in question to all of the suburbs across Australia. So when you have a score of 95, it doesn't mean that it will grow, by 95%. It actually means a score of 95 is better in comparison to all of the other suburbs than a score of 85. So it compares everything to everything, essentially.
Yep.
That's why it's relative composite, meaning 80 plus metrics, Now, in order for you to produce a score that speaks about a particular domain, for example, whether it's cash flow, capital growth, or risk, you inadvertently have to focus on the metrics that produce that domain. So, for example, if you're trying to determine RCS cash flow score, you got to look at vacancy rates, rental projections, yield, all of these cash flow generating metrics.
Yep.
Which means that inadvertently, when you're trying to produce a particular outcome, not every metric is the same. Now, on top of that, you consider, let's say, illiquidity of property. Illiquidity of property, what does that mean? It doesn't exchange hands on a regular basis. Like when you have a trend in property, and I trade shares and crypto as well. Right. I trade everything and I dabble in everything purely for a learning exercise, but also to make money essentially and to see how it all works. You can trade crypto and shares on a 15-minute chart. And the trend is like that. And it's because it's a zero-sum game. You can buy and sell it within a second, essentially. The trend is extremely volatile and it makes it very hard to predict. But property is not like that. Property has a very fixed and enduring trend because people don't exchange property like they do shares and crypto. They hold onto the asset to take account of compounding, which means that if you have trends established for certain metrics, they're enduring. They last, not minutes, but years. And then you think about economics 101. Economics 101 is reducing supply, increasing demand leads to price growth. Okay. And if you have trends that are short-term and long-term, you can lay information in a particular way to increase the probability that something will happen in the future.
Yep.
Sprinkle on that correlation analysis as well. And to high levels of probability whether an area that is generating minus 3% growth in the last year will actually get to 7 or 10 because of the trends of supply and demand, affordability, socioeconomics, all of these other things, and because of the correlation analysis. And I always say, everything is anticipation. If you're going to make money, you need to anticipate what's going to happen. And this specifically is tied to this huge difficulty of buyer's agents being able to source listings. And I always say to people, like, I understand the trouble of sourcing listings, but don't focus on listings, focus on anticipation. Move the needle forward or backward.
Yeah.
And enter a market where you don't have to elbow your way through against a lot of competition. Then sourcing listings become easier. But if you're going to enter a market and anticipate it will move forward, it needs to have particular ingredients that it will get there. And people ask me, how do you know that, a warm spot will get to a hot spot, And there are very easy, common sense, characteristics that get it there,
Now, we saw that, initially with the Brisbane market, particularly after COVID, we had, 80,000 Victorians run up, and they just increased the price overnight because they were just paying anything to leave in Melbourne with $1 million. You're living in the Gold Coast near the water, or Sunshine Coast particularly boomed. That was a difficult one to predict at that stage using the data, but we saw what you meant by about the hustle and the bustle of the market coming in with not a lot of education or strategy around what they were buying.
Yeah, so see, that's interesting about, the migration. I think there are certain terms, and I think everyone should throw out their TV. That's the first thing that they need to do. They need to throw out the TV and not look at the headlines because it's just annoying. And one of these headlines during COVID is that there's going to be a mass migration out of Melbourne. Melbourne prices are going to tank. And I remember it was after COVID, 2024 April, we did a presentation to BAI, I remember. And at that time, Perth was the flavor of the month.
In 22, yes, it was, definitely.
So 2024 April.
24, oh, right, yeah. It was,
yeah. So it was back end. It was still...
That was,
it was
right
actually
at the end of it all, but anyway.
No, but it was still...
Yes.
You have like the FOMO. FOMO works in... When it's peak FOMO,
yes,
that's when you should exit. So people like yourself consider that as the back end.
Yes.
But social media consider that as...
It's on the front page of the
exactly.
paper. Yeah.
It's just starting, you know? But and how I know that it was still the flavor of the month is because when you mention anything other than Perth, you'll cause a witch hunt on social media.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, and we said Melbourne's going to be the next hotspot, GCC. You know, look what's happening now.
I remember that.
Like it's very simple. Again, you just layer the information.
People thought we were crazy. It's been 18 months now we've been buying there. You know, coming on the back of working with you guys on the data, and you're getting in there a little bit earlier. And yes, you have to, but hang on, it's going down.
Yeah.
It's going down, but yes, we know it's going down. That's exactly what we want to be buying at that dip.
Everything moves in cycles. I mean, the notion of contrarian investing, you know, like, and I had this argument with one of our members. So I haven't mentioned this before. It was interesting. I went onto a podcast and I talked about some areas. Let's say Karoom Downs.
Yep.
Hypothetically, yeah. I get a message. Essentially, the guy is saying, why are you taking bread off my table? Why are you talking about these areas, on a major podcast? Now it's going to make it more difficult for me to source assets. I go, hold on. If I get asked a question, I will answer it. I will not lie. That's the first thing. Now, I need to decide when I'm going to close shop, not say anything, and not have the ability to build my business. But most importantly, our members were buying Karoom Downs 15 months ago, maybe even more, as you pointed out. Now, if you're putting all of your clients at Karoom Downs, you're not buying for the brief. It can't be just that. There are a multitude of other areas you can buy into, and if you're focusing on one, there's some intricacies about your buyer's brief that you're not considering.
Yeah.
But most importantly, as you said, people were buying in Melbourne, minimum a year to 18 months ago, in between that sort of time frame. And I actually remember a screenshot of Karoom Downs where it was discussed, what do you think? And I said it was a warm spot back then. I think it was July last year. I have screenshots about that. Yeah. And it was about, I think it was growing at that time 1 or 2% in the last year, but maybe even less actually.
Probably less, yeah.
It was on a zero mark, maybe a bit of a minus. Now you look at the year and you'll see I think it's 6 or 7. Yeah. You can anticipate things if you lay the information appropriately, and then you always move the needle. Like, are we buying under HTag now? To this year we're going to buy aggressively because we're accumulating.
Like a corporate entity, HTag.
Yeah. So we opened up a trust.
Yep.
The corporate entity is the, what's the term? The guarantor.
Yep.
We weren't buying for the last couple of years because we were building a business, and we wanted a cash reserve. With business, as you know, cash flow is very important, so you don't want to impair your cash flow, and now we're in a position to do that and we'll buy aggressively. I'm not looking at Melbourne.
Yeah.
I mean, I might, if I find that, again, I always say compound good decision-making. Find the right area, then find the right asset.
Correct.
So if I'll find the right asset in an area that's maybe 3rd or 4th down the list, I'll still purchase.
Yeah.
But my top one on the list is not Melbourne.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to look ahead. And I'll probably buy in an area where everyone say you're insane. You know what I mean? I'm looking at ACT actually.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I'm looking at ACT.
And that is where it comes down to the budgets, right? And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, one of the great advancements of the platform over the years that I've seen is now the ability. One thing we always use the word strategy. So where should we buy? I don't know where to buy. I have to understand you and your strategy and your short-term, long-term goals and your budget. And, finance is king. Can't get finance. You said ACT, but your budget has to be substantial to buy an ACT.
It's high. It's 800 plus.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, because we believe that's a sweet spot, But see, there are many areas in 800K range that are popular in Melbourne now.
Yep.
But no, I want to look beyond that.
Yeah. And ACT's had its time, and there's been areas and supply and demand metrics were really tight. Conan and those areas, remember going back a few years. But now when someone comes to me and says, I've got $650, I want to buy an ACT because I heard. We can't, that's not where we can buy at that price point. It might be better, maybe better places based on your strategy.
Absolutely.
And that's where the tool now that allows us to build
that narrative about exactly. Now, I mean, you I don't know if you've heard, we have a portfolio modeling feature coming in.
Yes.
So it's going to be much more robust where you can build these scenarios for clients. I do highly recommend that you onboard all of your clients on a freemium model where you can track their portfolio. It's a great lead generating thing as well, because you can reach out to them and say, listen, this has grown. Are you looking at, potentially buying again? All these other things. But putting that aside, when I said to some people, again, and we're probably digressing, but I think it's important. When I said to some people, I want to buy a close group of people, and I want to buy an ACT. I do know it's a 99-year lease. I go, I don't care. I'm in this game for growth.
I'll be done and dusted by then.
Not only that, but I'm in this game for growth. Yeah. I don't have. Now, my question is, if it's a 99-year lease, let's look at the past performance of the area and see if that mattered when it comes to growth.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. I don't care that it's a 99-year lease. So anyway, I just look at how to find the fastest horse.
So you said the point. My focus is growth. If it was a cash flow purchase, or that's your strategy,
cash flow is even better than in Melbourne.
Definitely. Not much is less than Melbourne.
If we look at yield, I could get it for 4% in the 800K mark.
Yeah.
In Melbourne, I can't get that.
Wonderful.
You know what I mean? But my play is growth. You're right. Yeah.
Search Party Property, nominated by REB as Australia's best buyer's agency and buyer's agent for 2025. Looking for your dream family home, a prime commercial property, or a smart investment? We've got you covered. Unlike others, we don't rely on selling agents or property managers. We have boots on the ground in key investment cities across Australia. Powered by data-driven insights, we give you the edge to secure the best deals. Ready to invest smarter and grow faster? Contact Search Party Property today for a complimentary discovery call. You actually mentioned earlier, let's go and talk about that.
Yeah.
Some of the mistakes you may have made in the early days of building the business or marketing the business, or what are some, maybe 3 things that stick in your mind, and what are we looking, where are you headed now? I've seen so many great enhancements to the model.
Yeah. So great question. Our business has been running since 2018, but it essentially hasn't been running for that long, because most of the times we actually spend playing around with things, not marketing the business, just between us. And the thing with that is that you produce an echo chamber, in a sense that if you and I are building something, we're going back, bouncing our ideas between us. But that might not be useful or required by the customer. They might not have interest in what you have interest in. You know what I mean? It might not be. So I guess mistake number 1, if I had to do it all over again, especially a tech business, and we sort of did employ a lean methodology, and a lean methodology would suggest that you build small portions and you start selling that and marketing that, and then you build and iterate on that.
Yeah. But
we were doing that. However, we took long to actually expose our product to the marketplace and actually start getting feedback about what we need to do. I would say that only in the last 4 years, we really created that positive feedback loop system where, we have a mastermind community, our community speaks to us, they say certain things, we listen, we integrate, and we iterate,
Very true.
So mistake number 1 is, I think community side of things is very important for any business. You need to build a following, you need to build a community. And that premise needs to be based and founded on solving a problem and providing value. Yeah. So I wouldn't build, essentially in a garage and try to do the best thing that I can. I would create a community, discuss and provide value about a particular problem, collect information, involve users into the journey more. I think that community aspect. If I started a business again and it was tech, I'll literally just create some kind of an online presence where I talk about a subject matter that I'm passionate about, which is going to be that business.
Well, we've seen that in some of the buyers agents who have had a Facebook platform, for example, and then once they got then they became buyers agents, which is always known was going to happen.
Correct.
But that was the whole rationale. And then you're starting your buyers agency, even though they say we don't promote it, but they can. It's their channel.
Yeah.
So they promote
yeah.
their businesses on that, and they've got 50, 60,000 people
Yeah,
following them.
absolutely, absolutely. Well,
Clever.
yeah. I mean, it's that network effect is essential.
Yeah.
The network effect is essential. And, you know, essentially you're working, even with the advancements of AI and everything that is happening, people still want to speak to the individual. They still want, you know, to feel special about something, you know what I mean, about a service. So I would do that different. I would definitely work on the community aspect or the network effect much sooner. And I will build on that and iterate faster from the feedback. Now, not all of the feedback that you get is actually important, because people also, when they give you feedback, they're thinking from their own domain of needs. And that might be a small niche. It might be down the product list, you know what I mean? It might be somewhere here, not here. But if things get repeated a lot, and if there is, you know, I think one thing that we, for example, did right, we focused on a problem that we want to solve. And problem that we wanted to solve is analytics opportunity cost, you know, how to have very robust analytics. I used to get asked many times, when are you going to have a cash flow calculator on your website?
Yeah.
You know, and although it's necessary and valuable, I first wanted to really hone in on our problem and solve it. And then you sort of expand, you know. So
a bit like the portfolio planner that you've got now. I remember talking to you about that, or Alex actually, about that years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, also when it comes to building a product and a business, I'm a big believer of partnerships and ecosystems. You know, like you might be an expert in something. There's a lot of greed permeating this industry.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone wants the whole pie to themselves. Yep. I don't like that. I don't function like that. I rather give piece of my pie to someone else, but that person is an expert in a certain domain and they build that. Yep. And we work together. We share by the way, you multiply the network effect as well.
Correct.
When there's many businesses working together,
yeah.
When you really think about it. So yes, your piece of the pie is smaller, but your market is much larger. So you just do the math, you know. So you were speaking about that with us a long time ago, but first, it requires a lot of maths and a lot of things to consider. Now, this is why, you know, let's say the portfolio modeling tools that are out there, they're not really accurate. It's all based on assumptions. Yep. You know what I mean? And then how can you combine trust lending with personal? How does your SMSF portfolio look with your personal? How do you merge portfolios? How do you build robust scenarios? All of these other things is actually complex. You know, it's not that simple. So yes, it was always on the cards, and we knew that it was necessary for a horizontally integrated experience.
Yeah.
But we first needed to solve our problem, then focus on that. Then we're also working on something which is the back end. You know, let's say an ecosystem where you don't need WhatsApp groups, don't need this with your clients. You take your clients through the whole experience into a centralized system, inspect property, this one's under contract, this is this. You communicate to it, and it's all there. And you have strategy, analytics, back end. And that's the full experience, you know. And we know it's necessary. It's just, you know, how do you get there? You know what I mean?
So they're the sort of things on the agenda at the moment.
Absolutely. Again, we're working with partnerships with certain individuals who already have established businesses who are actually very good at that last end of managing the customer. Yeah. You know, how do you get listings? How do you speak to sales agents? How do you assess listings? How do you take your customer on a journey from inspection to XYZ in a centralized environment and platform where you don't need to open up many different tabs, all of these things, you know what I mean? So it needs to be a completely, as I said, horizontally integrated experience.
Talk about experience. You know, you've got a lot of, I've seen the growth in the community is a lot of mum and dad investors, or just, you know, non-industry investors in the group now. And so for them, if someone hasn't really got that inbuilt sort of data and analytic mindset, or you know, find things even the platform a little bit tricky to use, can they still, you know, use what they can undertake out of that platform and use that to utilize on buying on the ground on their own? You know,
that's a great question. That's a great question. Now, we have systems in place and processes in place where people can learn how to analyze data. Now, I always say to them, if you want to learn something, by definition, that requires an effort to be made on your behalf. So I have a selection of mini courses on Mastermind platform, which they can spend 3 hours in analyzing. You also know that I have Submit Your Analysis group where they can submit their analysis. I go through it, I provide feedback, but the whole concept of learning means that there is a psychological friction there,
Yeah.
So absolutely, and it doesn't take long. It needs a bit of a time investment, and we have many mini courses that people can use to actually learn how to lay information, how to lay data. Now, the second part of your question is, can they use that information on the ground? Now, we have to understand the hierarchy of decisions, and what gives you most utility. Now, there's been a plethora of research done in China, US, Canada, UK, even in Australia, that 80% of growth in an asset comes from the location, not from the characteristics of the asset.
Right.
Which means that you can buy, and sorry for the profanity, I always use this just for effect, you can buy a great house in a shit location and you still see minimal growth. However, in order to see a lot of growth in something, you need to compound good decision making. So you need to sort out the area analysis first, which it gives you the highest utility, 80%, and then compound that with good asset selection. And then we come to this notion of, are buyer's agents required? A lot of people have built businesses on an adversarial relationship with another group, i.e., I'm going to build a course. I need to rubbish buyer's agents that that you don't need them. You don't need to pay 15K. You just need, and I'll give you a little bit of an anecdote. I know an individual who's finished a course, one of these courses that don't need a buyer's agent, subscribed to our platform. I taught him how to analyze information. We came to the selection of areas, 5 areas, and I said, look for assets in any of them. You're going to do great. For his particular brief, which needed an equity extraction time frame of 3 years, which means you're sort of edging of investing in hotspots anyway, yeah?
Yeah.
He couldn't find an asset.
Right.
Couldn't find an asset. I go, okay. He goes, what do I do? And it was an interesting situation where I don't want to outright say something because I'll rubbish the person who's doing the course and I don't want to rubbish him, But at the same time, when I got a few messages, said, this is why you need a professional.
Yeah.
So you can learn a lot of these things, but sometimes your brief would dictate that you need to invest in a hotspot. It's hard sourcing an asset in a hotspot.
Yep.
So you can understand to apply your learnings on the ground to understand which area is going to perform. But then there is another skill set that's required. And by the way, I'm not saying that the skill set of buyer's agents begins with sourcing. The skill set of buyer's agents starts with the analysis and portfolio and everything,
Yeah.
Now, okay, I can teach you all of that, but execution bit, not only finding the listing, but finding the right listing, checking all of the boxes, all of these other things. So yes, they can learn all of that stuff, and I'll give you an example. For some purchases at HTag, we didn't use a buyer's agent. For the next one, we will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We didn't use a buyer's agent because we had sufficient time. All of these other things, and I could do all of the legwork myself. You know what I mean? And from that experience, I'm like, no, I'd rather pay 15 to 20K because I'll know I get the return that I need to get.
Yeah, and look at multiple pest and building, all that type of stuff. I mean, the big word is negotiating. I mean, you were talking about that person who were trying to help.
Yeah,
they still need to negotiate the asset.
Absolutely.
The salesperson who we've always trained to believe they work for us as the buyer, their job is to get the highest price possible. So while we've always gone to them thinking as the punter, that they're on our team and they're going to get us the best deal, I think it's now the growth of the buyer's industry has really sort of shone a light on that, which, as you know, in the US, what are we up to, 70 or 80%? It's a little bit different the way they split up the commissions. But, I think Australia's a better model where there is a very clear divide. We only get paid by the buyer, the sales agent, which we call the real estate agent in Australia. Should be called the sales agent like in the US.
Yeah, that's right.
They only get paid by the seller.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, there are many individuals on the platform that I know, like we have a particular poster child, if you want to. He's been able to build a $7 million portfolio in 2 years using HTag only.
Wow.
But he actually really believed in the methodology. And he's the perfect example that it works. The guy would pay 30K extra for an asset knowing that market is going to boom.
Right.
And he was leveraged 105% on nearly every purchase. And now he's sitting at 70% LVR, 70-30 LVR.
When did he do this? Because it's hard to get that type of loan.
In 2 years. So he was doing it. And there is a masterclass video on this under replays.
Yes,
his name is Chaitanya.
Okay.
Shout out to Chaitanya. And he even showed everything. So I think, don't quote me on it, but I think for the so he used his PPOR. He made a mistake by cross collateralizing, for example. Using that, but all of the other purchases were literally leveraged 100%. And he would go into Red Lynch, for example, before Red Lynch boomed, which is Cairns.
Yeah.
And he would pay extra. I think I tell a lie. I don't think he paid extra 30. I think he paid extra 20. But he didn't made 150 after. You know what I'm trying to say? So there are ways, again, areas, momentum, very important.
Yeah.
But the guy's also very meticulous to find an asset. Bottom line is, yes, absolutely, to answer your question in a roundabout way, you can use this information and become very good at data analysis, which is very useful. But there is a reason why there are professionals there as well when it comes to execution and all of the many other things,
I mean, segue into similar topic or question. What's one of because you see a lot of it, what's one of the biggest mistakes or common mistake you see?
Yeah, so the first one is assuming that the first one is not buying under your brief.
Yeah.
People always do that. They go into slugfest of arguing about areas without even considering whether that suits what they're trying to do.
Yep.
That's the first thing. As a result of that, they usually isolate. So what is isolation? I get messages on a daily basis, 10, 15 messages. Matt, what do you think about this area? And they give me one name, one word. And I go, in comparison to what and for who? Because nothing in isolation has meaning.
Yeah.
I look at a vacancy rate that's 2%. It's meaningless. I don't know whether when it becomes meaningful is when I have another area under the same brief and its vacancy rate is 1.5. Now I get it. But that alone doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't. So first, it's very rare that people buy for their brief. And we've been drilling this in. By the way, as you know, our brief construction process is essentially 5 questions that people need to answer, but it is a deconstructed goal to the initial purchase. So what is your budget, investment time horizon? When do you plan to extract equity into the subsequent purchase? What is your risk profile? And what is your primary investment domain? This one is also important because people think that they can have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
So if you want to build your portfolio, you need to focus on capital growth, which means that you need to consider strategies to manage the cash flow aspect of things. Now, if you want to invest in a balanced strategy or cash flow, you want to get the growth, which will allow you to leverage into additional assets. So there are pros and cons to everything, and understanding that is very important. But again, I know a lot of methodologies and courses out there. Everyone goes to the same area.
Yes. Well, I think that's part of the premise of those courses, because then they can say everyone made 20%.
Exactly.
Because he's pushing people, or he or she is pushing people into an area.
But that's speculation. It goes like that. We do suffer from amnesia, and we do suffer from recency bias, in a sense that if I made in the first 2 years great returns, I'm doing well. Hold on, mate. Let's see how those returns are pan out in a decade.
Correct.
And whether they're going to evaporate. What's your reversion to the mean? Is it going to be zero? Are you going to lose everything, et cetera, et cetera? I'm not saying that they will, but these things need to be assessed. So not buying under your brief. And buying under your brief inadvertently means that you don't assign the same significance to all metrics. I see a lot of people treating everything the same.
Yep.
All data points the same. It's like treating all data points as not important.
Yeah.
You might as well not do a comparison. And then finally, isolating, thinking about one thing. Everything needs to be connected. It's a mind map. Brief is connected to the research. That research is informed by the brief because it informs what is significant and what is not, which then translates into a choice. It's like, it is project management essentially, with critical paths,
Mate, obviously a big 2-letter word, that's AI.
Yeah.
So obviously I could just use ChatGPT. I'll just type in my brief. It'll spit out where I should buy. Tell me how HTag is bringing in AI into its business, which it's already there.
Yeah.
And tell me about where you see that heading short term.
Yeah. So great question. Very important. Now, AI will change the way we do business, whether we like it or not. I don't like it. I have to accept it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't like it not because it's just going to flatten everything, flatten hierarchies, expedite retrieval of information. It is going to change a lot of things.
Yeah.
However, the issue with AI or large language models that currently exist, let's name them, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, DeepMind, whatever you do, the problem is that they don't have access to domain knowledge. Now, when I say domain knowledge, they have access to things that provide them with reasoning. But let's say if you're doing property investing and you put in ChatGPT or Perplexity, this is my brief, can you tell me where to buy? You have to understand how AI functions and works. The AI retrieves information from the web to produce you with an output. Now, information that's on the web can be a blog post that Matt done about ACT that I want because I want to invest in ACT and I want to pump my own bags, hypothetically, to connect all of the stories, What is that blog post or that information that the AI is drawing on? How was it written? What was the information that was used in writing it? What I'm trying to say is that AI is not completely vertically integrated. What I mean by that is you have the reasoning large language models, but they don't have access to information that exists behind paywalls.
Correct.
Yeah. So where it becomes a problem is when I say problem, Claude is partnering with Combank.
Yep.
Yeah. So, sorry, Anthropic. He's partnering with Combank. Combank is going to give Anthropic data, and they're going to analyze information. Now, Combank is partnering Anthropic for different purposes. You know what I mean? This is when the LLMs become extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. What we're doing at HTag, we built our own large language models. Now, everyone is talking AI, leveraging this term, but what it is, it's a ChatGPT wrapper. It's a ChatGPT, but I'm putting my own logo on it.
Yes.
No. That's not, it doesn't become built for purpose or fit for purpose, if I use a construction term. So we built large language models. We built multiple agents that speak to each other. A suburb analysis agent, suburb comparison agent, demographic analysis agent, all of these things. But all of these agents that have access to 5 decades worth of data, exact sales and purchasing, exact information that's been happening in the last 5 decades. This is when it becomes extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. When you use large language models that have access to information that's behind the paywall to retrieve information in a structured, expedited, and the outputs that are generated because you can analyze not only your portfolio, but you can analyze both emotional and rational domains of your investing. I'll give you an example, and it's a silly one, but it's a true example. I had a client come to me and say, can you find me which suburb will grow the most in Central Coast, but also make sure that in your analysis you consider pole dance studios because I'm a pole dancer and I want to be close to pole dance studios.
Okay.
See, this is when large language models do its magic.
Right.
It's essentially a question and an output takes seconds and it's accurate. That's when it becomes really interesting. Okay. So I do think that, and this is not just to pump HTag, or to say anything. I do think that for individuals who are not using these models will fall behind because think about it this way. We need to start thinking about how this is going to change our workflows. I know for a fact, because I get emails sent to me from clients asking buyer's agents about very complicated questions, and it's not, and coming back to buyer's agency as a service, I do believe that in order for buyer's agents to separate themselves and to really have a special service is that explainability layer.
Yeah.
They need to educate their client and take them on a journey.
Yep.
I know some buyer's agents say they don't pay me for that. I'm not going to give them that. They're transactional. They will fade away. People resonate with education because even when you give them something and provide them all of the value, they're still going to come back to you because of the experience, which means that explainability layer becomes very important. I received emails from certain individuals, buyer's agents, where a client was asking a very complex question. Very complex question. And on top of that complexity, there's an emotional element as well. In order to dispel that emotion, increase trust levels, your answer must be robust. It will take you a day to write an email response to that person. Now, it takes you a second. You literally copy and paste that question into an AI agent. It spits out an answer, and you provide an answer. Now, one downside to that is the downside of Google. You know, when we used to read encyclopedias, we used to actually remember things.
Yeah.
Now we Google it and our memory doesn't absorb it anymore. Now, what's dangerous is when buyer's agents start using these agents, assuming that their service will appear as special, but they won't learn and retain anything.
No.
So they need to actually absorb that information and understand that. But the way they provide information to their clients is, if I was a buyer's agent,
Tell me.
I will be thinking right today about building APIs and building some kind of communities for our clients where they can get answers from these large language models. And you constantly maintain touch points with, like, you can really think about reorganizing your workflows in completely different ways, you know, where you really provide a special service. And the answers, like, I try to break it. The answers, you know, you can ask, the questions that you can ask, from how many kilometers there is a school away with a particular rating. I have an elderly person who's going to do this and that in my house. I need to take, like, you can ask it anything, you know. So it is exciting. It is special, but we have to understand that for LLMs to be accurate, they need to have access to information that's behind paywalls. And this is why it's dangerous to use ChatGPT and Perplexity to make a decision.
Big decisions. Mate, we could probably talk for hours. I know we will, but I'll have to get you back on here.
All of my podcasts are 2 hours, by the way, and they actually cut them in half, just so you know.
I'll get you back.
Yeah.
I can't end by asking you one question, which a lot of people want to know. Obviously, it's going to be one you get all the time. Where would you buy? So let's say 700K, long-term hold, and capital growth is the focus.
Yeah, I would buy in Melbourne at the moment.
Yep.
I will buy in Melbourne. I think there are great opportunities there for that brief that you just said.
Yeah.
So price point, long-term buy and hold. The issue is going to be yield.
Yep.
So
Cash
straight
flow
away,
can cover that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So which means that right away, if you want to buy in Melbourne, essentially you have to figure out strategies of how to manage that yield component, or cash flow component, whether you're going to put a larger deposit or think down the track to improve cash flow by adding a secondary dwelling of some sort or whatever it is, you know. But yeah, Melbourne provides really good opportunities, I would say.
And pushing up, you're saying 8+.
8+. I will personally buy an ACT.
Yeah.
I will personally buy an ACT. I think, you know, when you look at the very high level of socioeconomics, very high levels of affordability, severe supply scarcity, that market is not mentioned in any. Have you heard anyone talk about ACT?
No, not recently.
But you know what's interesting? If you look at the supply, extremely tight.
Yeah.
It is essentially a perfect
The locals
storm.
talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it's essentially a perfect storm. So I really like ACT and looking into that. Other than that, you know,
give us a yield one, 550. The average Australian investor loan's 550.
Yeah,
what would you do with that?
550. I think it's hard to get a GCC Melbourne play in there. You have to go out, you know, Geelong, or you can't even get it there, I think.
No.
And
even if you're moving into Bendigo and Ballarat and these areas, it's tricky.
I was just about to say it's tricky. I was about to mention Geelong, Bendigo, Ballarat. It's tricky, but you might get something. You know, Cairns is a good play. I don't think you can get something for 550. Edmonton was there last year. He pumped. Townsville is not there anymore.
Even Gladstone you mentioned earlier in the podcast.
Gladstone, but again, Gladstone is an issue because of longevity. If your investment time frame is long term, it has too much volatility. So you're again inserting a level of unpredictability into your decision making that you want to mitigate as an investor.
Correct.
Not essentially bring upon yourself. So it's hard for the 550. You know,
it's going to be an interesting time because that's the average Australian investor loan.
Absolutely.
So unless they've got some equity or some cash,
9 out of 10 is that essential price point. Now, if you're investing in 550, your job is, yes, there are no premium areas, but that's why it's sitting at 550.
Yeah.
So there are certain compromises to be made.
Yep.
But you need to do the analysis to find the fastest horse within a cohort that has some compromises.
Yeah.
That's your job. Your job is to find the best. And this is another thing people come back, but it has a renter to owner ratio of X. I know nothing is perfect.
Correct.
You know, but on a balance of probabilities, this is your best choice because look at all these other ones, you know. So I don't have the information in front of me, and I'm sure for 550, if you like, as part of this podcast, I can send you a shortlist.
Sure. All right. We'll put it on in the show notes. Yeah. Special treat from Matt.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thanks so much. It's great to finally meet you in person.
Likewise, Djolic.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very valuable drop. So thanks for your time.
Cheers, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers. If you enjoyed the show, it'd mean a lot if you could take a moment to rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. The Invest Smarter, Grow Faster podcast provides general information and commentary about property, finance, and investing. It does not constitute financial, legal, tax, or investment advice tailored to your personal circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should seek professional advice from a qualified advisor. While we aim for accuracy and quality, we cannot guarantee all information is complete, up to date, or free from errors. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future results. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.